everyone, Emily here from Emily Reads, and this is take number 4 on this video. Why is it take number 4? Between phone calls and I'm talking, I'm like, oh, dang it, I just gave a spoiler. That is why this is now take 4, and when you don't know how to edit, you just have to stop and re-record. So hopefully take 4 is the final take. That being said, this is my May wrap-up. My May, I did not read as much. I had a reading slump. I had fallen on Mother's Day here in the United States, and I hit my forehead against the sidewalk. You can still see the scar there. I had a lump the size, almost the size of a baseball on my forehead, so I was not feeling it. No concussion, so that was good news, but I was in pain. And it was the end of the school year for me. So end of the school year means less reading because I'm exhausted. Final exams to be prepped for, taught, graded. I did have an IEP meeting. Progress reports needed to be done. I'm moving my classroom because I'm changing programs. So it was a busy May month wrap up for me at school. That being said, let me find the books that I read. So, first, I read a few stories in Side Jobs and Briefcases by Jim Butcher. So I read A Fistful of Warlocks, which is set... Actually, it doesn't even feature Harry. It's set in the Wild West with Wyatt Earp and one of Harry's ancestors working with Wyatt Earp to fight off evil. Then this has A Restoration of Faith, which is, Jim Butcher says, this is my very first Dresden story. It's not even really all that good. And he's right. It was not really great, but it was just intriguing to see Harry. He doesn't even have his own private practice. He's studying and interning so he can have his own private practice. And then in here is B is for Bigfoot. And Harry takes on a case. Bigfoot is a dad and has an angsty teenage son. And he knows that there's something wrong at his school, and he just wants to see what's going on with his son. So I'm reading through the Dresden Files, and so I'm interspersing the novels along with the stories as I need to read in chronological order. Then I read Elantris, which I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. So Elantris is a city that the people who lived there were like gods. They had gone through a change and they become these like god-like creatures and had this very powerful magic. That was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago, Elantris fell, and it's now this city that's just kind of decaying. And people still go through a change called the Shode. But when they go through that change, they basically are exiled to Elantris. It's assumed they die, and they're never heard from again. So, Roadan, I'm going to totally mispronounce his name. Roadan, he is a prince, and he goes through the Shode. And so he moves to Elantris. Well, Serene is a princess from another land. She is engaged to Roadan for a political match. They have never met. She arrives to Rodan's town, which is right next to Elantris, thinking I'm going to marry Roadan, and she gets told he's dead. She doesn't know why. So thus starts Elantris. I really enjoyed this because it's not action-packed, and I have not read anything beyond Mistborn Era 1. So my assumption, I'm assuming, I could be incorrect. If you have read more of Brandon Sanderson and know better, please let me know in the comments below. But it seems like Sanderson is a pretty good, hefty, action-packed driven author. After reading Final Empire and Hero of Ages, that's heavily action-packed. even Well of Ascension, even though there's a whole lot more talks of politics in Well of Ascension, there still is a whole lot of action. Elantris doesn't have a whole ton of action. There's a whole lot of talk about politics, about religion, about women's agency and autonomy and role in society. And I enjoyed all of those things. I was there for all of those discussions. And that's why I enjoyed Elantris. There were a couple of things that happened in Elantris that I was like, heck, that came out of nowhere, or okay, you're mentioning that, but like, why is that? Why is this happening too in the other kingdoms? Can we get a little bit more discussion about that? But I've been assured by other people in Discords that if I read the other stories, novellas that relate to Elantris, that I'll get more of those themes developed in that story. So I'm looking forward to reading those. I thought it was really fascinating, the magic system in this. I thought it was fascinating the changes that took place. And I also thought it really fascinating all of the comments about religion and its role in politics, especially given the times that we live in, and also like Brandon Sanderson is a practicing Mormon. Like, so for the take that he had, I was like, it was just fascinating to read those thoughts and knowing that biographical information about Sanderson. Excuse me. I had a thought and I just lost it. But again, I do recommend Elantris. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to reading more of Sanderson. And then I read Robin Hobb's Dragonhaven, which is the second book in the Rainwald Chronicles and the 11th book in the Realm of the Elderlings. So, this continues the story that was left off in Dragonkeeper, and it continues to follow Thymara, Centaura, Elise, Leftrin, and Cedric. And I'm going to say I, again, thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, there are some people who are like, oh, Rainwald Chronicles, it's YA angsty. For sure. There is a lot of YA angst in this novel, where I was like, whoa, very, very angsty. And I had to sit back and think through it. And this really is a coming-of-age story. It's a coming-of-age story for everyone. All of our main POVs go through a journey, and they are coming of age. And what is a YA novel? But usually YA novels are coming-of-age stories, hence YA angst. In addition, there's angst when you're coming of age. There's angst when you are discovering your identity and your role and your agency. I will say this, I'm going to try to not be spoiler-free. I'm going to try to be spoiler-free. So Thymara discovers her agency, and she very much is a strong proponent of her agency. And at first, I felt like she was saying that because she wanted to continue to follow the rules and wasn't fully embracing the agency, but was more afraid of change. And so at first, when she started really heavy hitting, like, I'm autonomous and I'm going to go my own path, to me it felt like she was too afraid to break the rules that she was raised with. So, but it was still interesting to read her journey and her progress. Hobb continues to develop very complex characters. There was a character that I had almost written off after the first book, and he just blew my mind, and I was like, oh, I'm really liking him and really liking how he's developed. There was another character, Tats, whom I loved in the first book, and in this book I just wanted to wring his neck. and was thoroughly disappointed in him. So um, I'm looking forward to reading the next one and to see what happens with the dragons. And finally, I read Summer Night, which is the fourth book in the Dresden Files, and this is also by Jim Butcher. And in this, Harry um, is having to find out who killed someone, and he's hired by the Winter Queen of the Fairies to do this. In addition, he's kind of caught in a catch-22 position between the Winter King, the Winter Queen and the Wizards Council. Um, we get more of his backstory, and we meet a character from his past. Um, so I thought that was intriguing. It was like fluff. Um, I think sometimes when I read these novels, I tend to want to know everything, and sometimes I just have to go along with the ride. And I think that's where I'm struggling with Dresden Files sometimes, is I just need to go along with the ride. Whereas I'm like, can you just explain things and be more direct about things? Um, One thing that I'm beginning to notice about Harry, he's kind of infuriating. He's kind of dumb. Like, Harry really is kind of dumb because he doesn't think things through. He'll think like, I gotta do this, and so he does it without thinking like, well, if I do this, then this could happen, or this could happen, or this could happen. And what, like, he does not think through like the implications of what he's doing and what could happen because of what he's doing, and how is he going to deal with the fallout of what he's doing. He just acts. He thinks like, here's the problem, here's a solution that I can do to solve it, without thinking through like, what are some other things, what are my other options, and what are the implications of all of my choices. I mean, I guess he's in his mid-20s, so I guess you're rash back then. I know I was. Of course, I'm still can be rash. But Butcher is a nice, lighter read. It's enjoyable. I'm hoping that they pick up more. I know some people who are like, Dresden is like in my top 3 of like best series, and I'm like, okay, I'm not there yet, and I'm hoping that it gets there. I'm so hoping that it gets there. And that is all. Like I said, it was a light reading month. 3 novels. Um, Elantris took me a good long while to get through. It took me about 2 weeks, and then Dragonhaven Dragonhaven took me a little bit longer too. Um, Let me know what you're reading. Let me know your thoughts on these novels. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.